Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where we chat with startup founders just like you from all over the globe. Each episode, we bring you practical and actionable tips to help you escape the cubicle and begin your own startup journey. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor, Podbrand Media.
As a business owner, new sales leads are essential. At Podbrand Media, we create a branded podcast for you to generate those leads by interviewing your best potential clients as subject matter experts. Not only creating great rapport, but also great content to share in your industry. Affordable and effective. Contact us today at podbrandmedia.com to learn more.
This is Kevin Prewett with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Rick Girard. Rick, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Hey, Kevin, great to meet you, and thanks for having me on as guest.
So I ask every guest the same question. I think it's a unique way to kind of start a podcast, and instead of just saying, just tell me your bio, how about if you and I met at a networking event and you stick your hand out to shake my hand, how would you introduce yourself to me?
I would say, hey, my name is Rick Girard. I help startups and startup founders hire the strongest people every time.
And this is got a system going, or is this just intuitive?
No, I have a system going for sure, because systems work and intuitiveness is a crapshoot pretty much. So
let's take a step back. Let's walk back a little bit in the journey here. So you didn't wake up yesterday and just say, you know what, I think I can help people with a system to hire well here. So what was the journey that kind of led you to this, and what is the company that you've started?
yeah, so I've been in executive recruiting for a very long time. I started out as a headhunter working with tech companies, placing software engineers in the Silicon Valley, which is a highly, crazily competitive market. And I kind of transitioned my career about 10 years ago into doing retained executive search. And, at one of my first searches, what I learned was when I was doing retained search was that I had an experience where I sent a person in for an interview. It was a high level job. It was a big fee for me. And what was interesting is when I debriefed the CEO after the interview, I said, how'd the interview go? And he went, it's great. We want to hire the guy. And I'm like, oh, great. Why? Talk to me. Like, tell me what happened. He goes, oh, well, we talked for about 45 minutes about the Oakland A's. It's my favorite team. It was his favorite team. We both like the same player. I'm like, whoa. Was this a date, or are you actually like?
He just watched Moneyball on TV the night before or something.
Exactly. They talked about the game for 45 minutes. And I said, you realize you're hiring somebody who's a VP, and you just talked about for 45 minutes about, I can't let you like hire this person. You need to meet with them again and actually run through a process. And he's like, nope, we're going to hire him. We're good. Everybody liked him. And I realized at that point that startup founders and startups, like they don't have a clue how to interview people or evaluate people. And I kind of knew this prior, but it was kind of interesting. That was when the light bulb went off that, hey, I've got to fix this, because quite frankly, it doesn't bode well on me if you hire somebody and it doesn't work out. It always gets blamed on the recruiter.
Yep.
It's always the recruiter's fault. He didn't vet him properly, whatever else. So for whatever reason, I just took it upon myself that, okay, well, you know what? For now on, every search that I do, I'm going to bring a process into place so that at least people have a roadmap by which they can actually interview people and gather data. And that involved into, okay, well, we got data, but now how do we get out of it evidence, which is more important? That's the more important evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, the more important data, right?
Right.
And so, it took me a while. I did a lot of trial and error and tried to figure out like what's the most effective way in which we can run somebody through a process, and you can, with a high degree of certainty, be able to walk out of an interview going, yes, that's our person, and here's why. That's the other thing. Like when I would ask why people wanted to hire people, they never knew why. It seems like a nice guy. Let's just try him out.
No evidence to the to support the decision. It was just, there's a gut feeling or something like that. Like that. I
Yeah,
liked
exactly.
it, So
Exactly.
I'm curious, were you on your own at this time, or were you still working like within a staffing agency, when you had this idea to kind of put these things together?
Yeah, I had this really cool, crazy journey. So like I actually I started in recruiting. I moved to Idaho like for a job, and I actually I moved up there to snowboard, but got a career essentially. And then I came back down to California with the CEO of the company, and we started up a recruiting firm. Did really well. This was all like kind of pre 9/11 ish, and I ended up exiting like right before 9/11 or right after 9/11 and moving to Hawaii. And so I did my like reverse vacation. I kind of semi retired / had a business. And I've been on my own ever since I moved to Hawaii. I started up the recruiting firm, and then, as it evolved, I moved back to California about 8 years ago now. And so as it kind of evolved, I've been on that trajectory, and I'm always I've always been entrepreneurial, and I always tell everybody I'm totally unhirable. Like
Most of my
nobody would
guests
want
are.
me working for them.
That's right. Most of my guests are definitely that, for sure. Tell me, the company itself, is it the process that's named Intertru, or the company that's named Intertru, or both?
Yeah, so the process is called Hire OS. It's what we've been running through my search firm, which is Stride Search. Intertru, we just launched last year, is the software platform. Okay. So it's a method-driven, AI-led interviewing platform that runs the interview with the human. So what it does is it ensures that the human's asking the right questions and gathering evidence to support a decision. And really, the goal is eliminating assumptions, bias, and personal motives from the interview process. And we're highly successful in doing that right now, which is super cool.
And does it also build in things like you can't ask this in an interview because this is a violation of employment law here? Does it, or because I can imagine it's the applicant's resume, it's the job description, that you're looking for kind of combined, and then is there something also overlaid about the legality of the process?
Actually, we take the whole interview process that's common and we just throw it out because, look at, if you leave people up to their own devices, they're just going to have conversations about things which they think are innocent, which get them into trouble. Yeah. So we have the whole interview process completely mapped out. Here's your questions. Here's the sub questions under these questions so you can gather more evidence to support that question. And that's your lane. That's what you get to do. And it makes it challenging, but it also makes it very streamlined. Nobody goes outside the box, and you don't really have to, you don't really have to coach them on things that they don't have, that they can't do, because again, it's already mapped out for them.
That also kind of levels the playing field of hiring managers, that says, whether you're really good at it or you're not very good at it, or you're new or whatever. I mean, I would think that would be an incredibly valuable tool, for a company to use. Oh,
it totally is. Like, again, if you're a new hiring manager or you're a new entrepreneur, one of the big mistakes that I used to always be brought into is, we hired a co-founder. Co-founder's not working out. Can you help us replace that co-founder secretly, right? Well, why don't we avoid that whole issue in the first place? And why don't we run a really strong process to make sure that we're positioned properly, like we're in the same lane, we're heading down the same avenue. Right. The other thing that I used to see a lot was, especially in tech companies, we're going to hire this guy or this woman out of Facebook or Google or one of those name brand companies. And you're like, I hope that works out for you. But in most cases, that person is not positioned properly for your company. Most people who work in large organizations struggle in startups. And it ends up being a complete waste of time, but also, it's more of a vanity hire. You want to be able to, as a CEO, say, yeah, we were able to attract somebody who's out of, XYZ company. Right. And then you're surprised that it didn't work out because, they supposedly did well at XYZ company, so of course they're going to crush it at your company. So I've seen that
that's a good
same
assumption.
story
Yeah.
over and over again for such a long time.
I unpack it just a tiny bit more. So if you're hiring if you got a small startup, you got 8 or 10 people that are working 80 hours a week, sleeping on the floor, eating
Yeah.
ramen, versus somebody that's used to, hey, I'm clocking in for 37 hours a week and I don't work 38. I take off Friday afternoon and I log out, and I'm used to a very structured environment. It's the rules are the rules. We do get free stuff to eat on break, but other than that, it's a pretty consistent, corporate environment that they're
Yeah.
coming from. So what do you see transitionally is the most difficult for, employers or employees, I guess, to go from that, corporate environment to like the startup side?
Well, I think it comes down to what the person desires.
Mm.
Do they, there's a lot of people that go into large companies that are completely mispositioned, like they
Yeah.
don't do well in large companies, and they're there because, they probably have to pay off student loans, or, for whatever reason, maybe they're purely financially, and they probably hate it there, right? But I kind of broke it down into like three, like I believe there's like kind of, we're all wired in a different way, like from a DNA perspective. I think there's builders, I think there's improvers, and I think there's maintainers.
Mm-hmm.
And, builders are the people that you need at startups. And those people use that as a language. They're like, I really want to build something from scratch. I want to be part of something I can make an impact rather than just kind of taking orders. Improvers are the people that you bring in kind of afterwards that are really close to that, but their thing is, you got something good, I can make it better. And they really thrive in that. And then you have all the rest, and most of, unfortunately, like what comes out of corporate America are maintainers. They're there to keep the engine running, and then essentially like collect their paycheck and go. And as a startup founder, you can't have any of those people in your organization, for a while.
Right.
For a while.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we get trapped with them.
I love the way you kind of walk through the whole DNA analysis of the different, types of personalities that you could hire. And we're going to take a quick ad break right now, but we're going to come back and we're going to unpack it wasn't even a plant question because he came up with it on his own. I didn't even tell him we're going to talk about this, but we're going to dive a little deeper in the DNA of an entrepreneur right after this break.
Have you been wanting to start a podcast but not sure where to start? Well, now you can start a podcast in less than 24 hours. I'm David Ezel, and I'll walk you through all of the things that you need to get started today. Things like how to choose the right microphone, how to edit your audio, and how to find guests and build a pipeline of future guests. This course does a great job of keeping things high level while also diving into the things that keep most people from starting. Even better, if you use the code RISING at checkout, you'll get 20% off your purchase. But that's only if you use the code RISING at checkout. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast today.
We are back, and Rick, thanks again for joining us on Rising Tide. I loved what you said just before the break. You were talking about kind of 3 personality types that you could hire, but I have this question that I love to ask. And you mentioned off camera, you said, hey, I am the definition of a serial entrepreneur here. So I'm going to really enjoy your answer on this one. But I have a theory that there really are 2 types of founders. And it's a little similar to how you just described. So you've got the people that can create things. They're very creative. They love to start things, but they're terrible at maintaining it. And then you've got the people that they could run anything, and they both could call themselves startup founders. But talk about those 2 types, and then I've got kind of a subcategory that I want to talk about after that.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a Traction or EOS like fanboy, right? So, the visionary, which is this guy right here, me. I'm the person who I can get things running. And I know how to keep it running, but day-to-day operations and the minutia of like the details, I'm terrible at. And so, I believe you're right, because I know I know a lot of entrepreneurs or CEOs that are really good at like running the business from a
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day perspective. I think EOS calls them integrators, right? Is it integrators? Integrators. So
Versus
like,
innovators. Yeah.
yeah, in the EOS infrastructure, there's a visionary and the integrator,
Mm-hmm.
like, your CEO, COO,
Yep.
essentially, right? So, yeah, I'm, and it's funny. I feel like most entrepreneurs are probably more like me, more on the visionary
Mm-hmm.
side. Um, and the trick is actually finding an operational person who can say, okay, well, I can take that
Right.
and we can build it and we can make it better and continually make it better.
I think the CEO too, the role kind of morphs over time, I believe, as well. The CEO role of early stage startup is completely different than the CEO role of a company that's been, established and is kind of maintaining or just growing slowly year after year after year. Almost
Yeah.
it's more in maintenance mode. But you mentioned earlier, you talked about, I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm curious, and I also have a theory about this, about, do you think entrepreneurs are born, or do you think they are kind of grown out of necessity?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think I was probably born to be one, but I think that there are people that kind of, well, I guess I might be confusing like entrepreneurs with like solopreneurs, or like, as Mark Cuban puts it, wantrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Exactly.
I yeah, I think, I think I was probably born to be this way, or maybe it's a learned behavior though too, because I have a father um who was, I don't know if he was a solopreneur
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of years. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
ran his own. My dad was a pool man when we were growing up, and he had a pool route in Beverly Hills doing celebrities' houses,
Mm.
and it was kind of fun. I remember going, and like he'd pay me $10 to clean a filter and stuff like that. Um, and then he went into the car business and became a used car salesman of all things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was just being around that. And I remember at an early age, I mean, I would mow my neighbors' lawns and I would do things to make money because I wanted to be able to make money, you know. And
Certainly in
that's
your
why I got into
DNA.
recruiting, was because I knew people, and they were driving around in brand new BMWs and buying houses, and I was like, I need to get into this.
I think that you mentioned it earlier, and kind of affirmed, or confirmed my theory here, that you said, I'm really not employable anymore.
Yeah.
I am certainly unemployable. And I think that really is kind of the genetic side. I think there are people that out of necessity become business owners or run businesses. But I think
Yeah.
entrepreneur is kind of a special category, that the creative side of things. It says, I'm an idea person. I like you mentioned, visionary. It is interesting to see, the different guests I've had on here. They're at different stages, of leading companies, and some of them are certainly like you, and probably like me too. I mean, pretty unemployable. We like to have the freedom of being, kind of driving our own ship here. But
I'm proud of that too. I like being unemployable. I don't know about
it
you.
is. It is. It is. And the idea is that, you kind of control your own destiny,
Yeah.
business destiny type thing, and says that, hey, it's going to rise and fall on me getting up every morning and getting after this type thing. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious, if this all crashed today and you woke up tomorrow and it was all gone, what would you do to make a living starting tomorrow?
You know what? I don't know. I'd do it all over again. I would find something that I need to do. Like, I feel like, so with the software company, if it all crashed today, I've always got a fallback in going into search. I mean, I've got a pretty good reputation. I'm really good at that. But, you know what? It's funny. I don't even think that way. Like, if it all fails, in my mind, it can't fail because I won't let it fail.
That's
Right.
the way. No, I'm saying, let's say it was taken away for some reason, like that didn't exist anymore. What would you do tomorrow? And I think you kind of answered it a little bit saying, I don't know, I'll figure it out. I mean, what's the need out there that I can fill, type thing.
Yeah. I might be depressed and go sit on the beach for a few
Go to Hawaii
days or
and
something like that.
semi-retire
I might
again.
go back to Hawaii and just kind of lose myself for a few days.
Got to sell the Beamer before you go.
Yeah, luckily I'm not a Beamer fan, but yeah.
Got to sell those cars in your garage before you go.
That won't happen.
I just love the energy that you when I ask you questions, especially around this whole entrepreneurial idea, that your eyes kind of light up. You're like, you know what, that's fun to me. That's me. I can sit around and talk about business ideas. We can generate, we can whiteboard, we can brainstorm. You probably love to even talk to people that have ideas, to help them kind of formulate what the next steps are. Do you find yourself kind of in that, pseudo ad hoc mentor role from time to time?
Right now I've been heads down. Like right now I feel like I'm in that place. I forget who said this, but like, with a startup, I don't know if it was Peter Thiel or Ben Horowitz or something like that, but there was a quote I remember reading, like, as a startup founder, you should only feel two feelings: terror and excitement. And that's what I've been experiencing, like, I'm kind of in a totally different realm than what I've been doing, but it's fun at the same time. Like the terror is exciting for me, even though my ability to meditate and my stress levels are through the roof. It's still, it's still a lot of fun. Like, and I just light up and I have fun with, I do talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs. I'm part of EO.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm actually in their accelerator program right now. So it's kind of fun because I'm around other people that are trying to build similar businesses. So I do have that peer group and I help out where I can, because a lot of people are hiring and, making mistakes. And so I'm just kind of doing my experience share to help them to avoid those mistakes, so that they can get the right people on the bus. That's really what it's all about.
Well, whether you have that time carved in your schedule or not, I have a feeling that you will simply attract people, that are going to see what you're doing and want to ask questions and kind of, hey, can we have a cup of coffee? Can we take a few minutes? Can I ask you a question type thing? And
I do get quite a bit of that.
Imagine you'll do that. Yes, certainly will take that time.
I had to start saying no to that, by the way, about 9 months ago, because I'm always out there and I'm always kind of attending events, and you get hit up a lot. And I actually hit up people quite a bit too, saying, hey, can you help me out?
Right.
I kind of, I just don't have enough time in the day.
Yeah. And it's within reason. Certainly you have to work that out. I mean, it's,
once the terror subsides a bit more, then I should be able to, like, sure, exactly. I'll go grab coffee with you, even though I don't drink coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't need that. I have some natural caffeine built in. So if you're speaking to our audience right now, they're a little further behind you on the journey. Give us one or two just you think are really salient points that you've learned over the years that you think would be very helpful for, somebody that's just getting started and trying to build something, and that might be a generic advice that you think would be really helpful.
So that kind of reminds me, or brings me back to a quote from Benjamin Franklin, which is, if you fail to plan to fail. I believe that, the way that most startups function is like, we have an idea, let's just go execute it. But you don't spend the time or invest the time to really plan it out and think about it. I mean, your plan's going to change. You're going to pivot. All kinds of things are going to happen. But the thing is that you really have to have something that's going to hold you accountable, that will help you to execute. And as we all know, like, execution, like I fail in execution all the time, but it's like getting back up and trying to execute differently, right? Especially if you're going to do a business with people.
Mm-hmm.
If you need other people in your business for whatever reason, then you should really, really sit down and map out a org chart to understand what you want and how you're going to build the organization. You don't have to put time frames, but you need to have at least a really good idea of what that is. And then, start being proactive about meeting those people that you're going to want to bring into your business when the timing's right.
Right.
And nothing attracts like high caliber talent or high performers than structure, than people like you having stuff together and being able to essentially say, look we're not a fly-by-night company. We're taking this seriously. We have an interview structure. Here's our process. And then running the process on everybody, regardless of where they come from, and making sure that you adhere to what that process is. And, it is painful to walk away from people, but the worst thing you can do is fall in love with somebody and hire them. And they have a totally different expectation of what they're thinking that they're getting out of it than you do. And then they fail miserably. And then you just wasted all kinds of time, all kinds of money.
Yeah.
And, it could have been and sometimes it's the demise of the organization.
I mean,
Somebody's
letting people go is
really
never
tell
good.
you, yeah, somebody's got to really be able to convey to you why they want to work with you. And it should never be about the money, especially when you're in a startup.
Yeah.
It should be more something like, hey, I love the problem you're solving. It's dear to me. Here's why. There's got to be some sort of emotional connection to what you're trying to accomplish. And they should be selling you on why they should join. Yeah.
If we can execute together and the money will come, the whole idea. So I'm curious, I want to kind of circle back on your very first, or I guess point 1B, but you said, execution is absolutely vital. What is the internal motivation that helps you execute, or what's your personal plan that you put in place that says, I am going to execute, other than just the fact that you're just driven,
I fail in execution all the time. So here's the thing. You just got to keep picking yourself back up, dusting yourself off and going. I mean, the habit that I've created is that when I roll in my office and I start up my computer, the first thing that I do is I have a phone call planned out. I am making a call. It's got a purpose, and here's what I'm going after.
What a great idea.
No matter how good or bad it is, it at least gets that out of the way for the day. So nothing can get better or worse. Actually, nothing can get worse than that if it's a bad one, right? So at least I'm getting the rejection out of the way. And right now we're doing a fundraise, and right now we're doing we're selling our product, and so what we're selling is hard. It's difficult. It's different than what most people expect. So the problem that we're solving is very real, but the way in which we're going about it is very, very counterintuitive to the way most of us think about hiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
a learning curve.
It's not an easy sell.
Well, that is kind of the double difficulty of what you're trying to do, is the fact that, selling is hard enough when people understand the product and they already see the need. You've got to educate, beforehand, and then, sell the idea. So, I love the process. I love the journey that you've gone on. And as we're wrapping up today, what is one thing that I just haven't asked you about you'd kind of like to touch on really quickly here at the end, and then also just tell people where the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, the one thing you didn't ask me, I don't know. I mean, I don't like to talk about myself that much. I always I'm a really good listener, so I like to do what you're doing. That's why I have a podcast as well, right? So yeah, I think the one thing that kind of sets me off is that, this journey for me now is more about helping other entrepreneurs to succeed. And that's kind of why we built a platform, because I don't scale and I'm pretty expensive when you try to hire me. So the idea behind it is that, if you are a person who's like, hey, I have no idea how to hire. I mean, the way in which you get really good at hiring is get really good at interviewing. Yeah. And if you want to get really good at interviewing, come to me. I'll help you out. So the best way to reach me, I'm pretty approachable. You can find me on LinkedIn. Also, I have a podcast as well. Not to steal your thunder or anything, but it's called Higher Power Radio. It's not a religious show. It's about hiring.
Look on
as you might
YouTube.
have
Look at his
guessed.
t-shirt on YouTube.
Yeah. My t-shirt gives it away. And the goal of the show is actually it's aimed for entrepreneurs, and the idea is that we want to help them, give them data on how they could deal with difficult hiring issues. There's nothing more frustrating as a CEO, at least for me, than having your sights set on somebody who like, oh my, I know this person's going to crush it for my company, like, and then you lose them, and then you have to go for number 2 or number 3,
Right?
because you feel like you have to take the leftovers. And the truth is, you don't have to lose those people. You just have to you have to change your approach to where they see more value in joining your company than the competitor.
I love that. That's going to be a quote on a card we're going to share on social. That very last statement you
I
just
love that.
made, and so we'll
I'll take
send
the
that
quote.
to you,
I
and
love
you can send it out for sure. You can share it in your social media. But Rick, man, thanks
I'll
again.
put it on my Christmas card.
There you go. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Rick, man, I appreciate you coming on today. And so we're heading into a long weekend, and just taking time today and just sharing your insights and your story, and really just helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Rick, have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too, Kevin. Bye-bye.
We hope you heard some great takeaways. Make sure you follow up with our guests today and show them the support they deserve. As always, thank you for listening and playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide.